This job sucks. My boss is such an asshole. I don't get paid enough for this shit. Why do so many people feel this way about their job? Why do so many people feel that the job they do is basically pointless? And why are we so anxious all the time? It's capitalism. Okay, so what is it about working in capitalism that makes us so miserable? Are people just lazy? Do we all just hate working? I don't really think so. People often enjoy working for themselves or participating in something that they believe in. I know I do. For example, my job doesn't make me very happy, but working on these YouTube videos, something I actually work a lot harder on, does make me happy. Under capitalism, instead of working for ourselves, we sell our labor to an employer doing something that is either like boring, or pointless, or repetitive, or all three. This causes what Karl Marx called worker alienation, and it's where workers don't feel any investment in what they're doing. If you're just some random employee, you don't actually have a stake in the company you're working for, so what difference does it make if you slack off just enough to not get fired? It's not like working harder will make your life any better, your wage will probably be just about the same. That sort of attitude is prime for making people really unhappy. You aren't working for yourself, you're working for someone else, and that really sucks, but more than that, it is fundamentally exploitative. So there's this idea called the labor theory of value. And one of the big postulates is that in order for a company to be profitable, they necessarily have to pay their workers less than the value that they create. If they don't get more money out of you than they pay, why else would they hire you? That feeling you have that you're not being paid enough, that's real. You are being ripped off. Okay, so in feudal times, your exploitation was actually much more obvious. Let's say you're a serf in feudal Europe. You live on some lord's land and you have your own little hut you live on and you have the plot of land you farm. You know, while you're working, which part of the field is food for you and your family to eat and which part is what you're going to give to the feudal lord. You know when you're working for yourself and when you're working for someone else. It's obvious, and in this time, it required much more obvious force to keep people in line, which is why knights were often an entire economic class. Today, capitalism has made it very hard to tell when you're working for yourself and when you're working for your boss. Let's say you work for 8 hours a day and you create $80 worth of value for your company, meaning you create $10 every hour you work. If your boss pays you $5 an hour, you'll only make $40 at the end. The other $40 is value you created, but that you'll never get to see. It's important in this analogy to see that you're not getting ripped off when you get your paycheck. You're getting ripped off while you're on the clock. After the first 4 hours of work, you've created $40, which is all you're going to get paid, meaning that the other 4 hours you're there are essentially unpaid. You'll never get to see that though. There's not going to be anything on your paycheck showing the surplus value that was extracted from your labor. It's not like taxes, which are marked right on your paycheck. It's just not there because that's not assumed to be theft under capitalism. It's obscured by the fact that you're being paid a wage directly from your boss as opposed to in like feudal times where you would create everything and a feudal lord would come and just take some of it. They're able to hide what's being stolen. This is why leftists are bewildered at libertarians who like to complain that taxation is theft but then don't apply the same standard of profit. When I was a libertarian, it was because I didn't understand the labor theory of value. I didn't understand that, at least taxes go to pay for something you might actually use, like roads or schools or hospitals or something. But profit? That goes straight into someone else's pocket. It's never gonna help you, it's never gonna benefit you, and you helped create it. I think being a server in America gives you a really good window into how much you're being ripped off. The minimum wage for servers in this country is an abysmal $2.13 an hour, most of which disappears into taxes, so the paychecks are meaningless. This means that basically anything that servers make comes directly through tips. Like literally everything servers have is from tips. And this is where it gets really obvious. You look down at a check where someone paid $100 for their meal and then tipped you 15%, meaning $15. You notice that you worked really hard and that $100 is basically all going to the restaurant and you're just getting a little bit that's added onto the end out of the generosity of the people who came and ate at your restaurant. Now, obviously the labor of servers isn't the only thing that went into that $100. There's the kitchen staff, there's bussers, there's food runners, there's all sorts of other people who work in a restaurant. But even then, most of that money is going to the restaurant owners, not to the other people that you're working with. In Marxist terms, the restaurant owner owns the means of production while you sell your labor to them for less than it is worth. Now, I know some people are saying right now, wait a second, didn't the business owner work really hard and take on all the risk? Well, yeah, in some sense, that's probably true. I assume that most business owners actually do work pretty hard, especially when the business is first getting off the ground. But I think that really misses the point, because hard work doesn't change the nature of the relationship between the boss and the worker. If you work really hard to scam someone, it's still a scam. It doesn't matter that you worked really hard to do it. What matters is that you were being fraudulent about what you were offering. Similarly, it doesn't matter that the owner works really hard, but that they demand that you work unpaid hours. Also, is it not risky to be a laborer? What if you're in precarious work? What if you're in seasonal work? What if you're paid barely enough to survive, or you're one medical bill away from bankruptcy? That sounds pretty risky to me, but since under capitalism there's no real choice in that risk, we just ignore it. This really is the consequence of treating capitalism like it's human nature, because you'll end up sympathizing with the exploiter instead of asking, why is this situation the way it is in the first place? If your only options are sell your labor to an employer for less than it's worth or starve, that is not a choice. I am not trying to say that work is fundamentally oppressive. I don't think that it is. What I'm saying is, some people should not be profiting off the labor of others while those laborers make barely enough to survive. And keep in mind, your boss is an authoritarian. Don't say the wrong thing, don't dress the wrong way, don't do the wrong thing to your hair. If you're black, hair standards can be incredibly distressing. A lot of workplaces have pretty racist standards for what hair is supposed to look like, essentially saying that white hair is normal hair, and that black people's natural hair needs to be conformed to fit that. Your boss can say whatever they want to you, and you can get fired for saying the wrong thing back. In America, and in the Deep South especially, where labor unions do not really exist, there's almost nothing stopping your boss from firing you if you're just too sick to come in for a few days. And becoming unemployed is a disaster for people working paycheck to paycheck. In fact, it's kind of a disaster for anyone. That is actually probably the worst thing about capitalism. At least in feudalism you had job security, but under capitalism, unemployment is a requirement. If there were full employment, the employer couldn't just artificially keep wages lower, because you could leave at any time. There wouldn't be what's called the reserve army of labor, the unemployed people, ready to take your job if you get fired or go on strike. Everything about capitalism is driven by forced labor, but the design of the system is such that we blame ourselves for what happens in it. But you know what? It's not our fault that so many jobs pay terribly because the wealthy and powerful are stealing from us. It's not our fault that jobs constantly stress us out because the weight of unemployment is hanging over our heads. Unemployment is not a personal failure of the people it falls upon. It is a built-in feature of capitalism that it cannot survive without. The personal responsibility narrative is truly some twisted, evil genius shit because it individualizes all of the problems that a system like capitalism causes and obscures us from seeing what's really going on. The personal responsibility narrative makes it almost impossible to talk about systemic issues because anyone complaining can be told to just do better. Anyone stuck in a garbage situation created by capitalism can be told to just quit the victim mentality and pick themselves up by their own bootstraps. Something which is actually impossible. All of this makes us so constantly anxious and miserable that we end up hating each other or even ourselves. There's this mind virus telling us that if we just fixed ourselves, then we'd be okay. But the reality is, capitalism is the problem. Socialism says, hey, it's okay that you're struggling. It's okay that you're not a robot who can't work non-stop. You'll be taken care of. You'll have a guaranteed livelihood. Socialism says that you deserve the full value of your labor, and also that it's okay to do things that are productive and useful, but not necessarily profitable. Raising children isn't profitable, but we need parents. It's nearly impossible to make it as a musician or artist, but the arts add so much to society that could never be quantified by money. We only pay historians through tax dollars, and we sure as fuck need them. We deserve a society where everyone is able to contribute, and people are driven to work by their passion, and not by the need to work just to survive. We deserve a society where those who can't work, or who aren't profitable to capitalism, are still seen as valuable human beings, because you know what? We are all going to be vulnerable someday. We deserve a society where automation doesn't frighten us, but can be seen as a way to eliminate menial tasks, and maybe one day eliminate work entirely. We deserve a society that is truly liberated. A society where everyone's needs are met, because we cannot enter the world of liberty until we have satisfied the world of necessity, and capitalism is structurally incapable of satisfying everyone's needs. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I have 5 tasks for you. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, follow me on Twitter, and consider donating to my Patreon so that I can hopefully buy some better equipment and maybe make these videos even better. I know this video was a long time coming, kind of took me a while to get it through, but as soon as this semester ends, I'll be graduated and I can really focus on this channel. Again, thanks for coming. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next video. Stay classless, comrades.